Hello, everybody. My name is Stephen Aronset. I'm the Director of Consultant Services here at MBO Partners, and I'll be the moderator for today's webinar. This webinar is presented by MBO Partners. We've been doing one thing really well for the last 26 years, and that's making it easy for independent consultants and their clients to work together. If you're already an independent consulting or you're thinking of starting to work independently, you can learn more by going to mbopartners.com. But simply put, you find your own work, you set your own rates, you choose your projects, and you maintain complete control of your business. We just handle all the other stuff that keeps you from being more billable. Just a few housekeeping items. You'll notice a small box to the right of your screen. Feel free to ask questions at any time during the webinar into the question area there to the right. What I'll do is I'll accumulate these Q&A for a session with Tom at the end of the presentation. Also, just so you know, this webinar will also be recorded, and a link with a copy of the slide deck will be sent to all attendees today so that you can share this with your colleagues and friends who are unable to make it. And I would like to introduce Tom Sant, an internationally known guru on proposal consulting. He's been called America's foremost practitioner of proposal writing by the American Management Association and has trained thousands of executives and other professionals on writing winning proposals. He's also the author of Persuasive Business Proposals, which has sold more than 40,000 copies, and he was named first ever fellow of the Association of Proposal Management Professionals for lifetime contributions to the profession of proposal writing. We're pleased to welcome Tom as an expert contributor to our webinar series. Tom, if you want to take it from here.
Well, Steve, thank you so much. I appreciate that. It's a pleasure to be able to share some ideas that will help people answer the question, what is a successful proposal? What does it take to be successful in writing these documents that most of us have to live with as consultants, but most of us don't really enjoy all that much? I was giving a presentation one time at Johnson Controls, and I asked that question rhetorically, what is a successful proposal? And from the back of the room, somebody yelled, one that's done. I think that's a sentiment we can probably all sort of agree with, especially if you struggle to get a complex bid out. But ideally, we have a slightly higher standard than that. Ideally, what we're shooting for is one that actually wins. That's where we begin to get payoff. And so what I want to talk about today are 4 key ideas that will help you win. To maximize the chance of winning, it's really a matter of delivering the right message the right way. And by the right message, I'm talking about the content, and by the right way, I'm talking about the structure of the message. I guess before we get into that, though, it might make sense to take a look at what a proposal is not. First of all, what it's not a price quote. Because if all you offer your customer is a price quote, if you're giving them basically a statement of work and a price sheet, then what you're telling them is, look, the stuff I do for you is fundamentally a commodity, and you should be buying it as cheap as possible. It's also not a product spec. If all you're doing is describing the product, or even if it's a service, the service that you provide in detail, then what you're doing is telling them this is transactional business. I'm not really providing a solution per se. What I'm offering is fundamentally a product to meet a basic purchasing requirement. That's not where you want to be either. And clearly it's not the company history, because if you start off with your company history, with your background, with your capabilities, with all the experience, then it comes across as being self-centered. The message there is, look, this isn't really about you, it's about me. So sit down, fasten your seatbelt, we're going to go for a ride. Unfortunately, these are pretty typical approaches. I see hundreds of proposals every year with the various clients I work with, and that's pretty much, the 3 big buckets that they fall into. And this is true whether it's a written proposal or it's an oral. What in financial services is sometimes called a pitch book presentation or an oral proposal. For example, take a look at these slides, and you tell me, does this look like something you might have seen before? We have a presentation from Albion Technologies. And what is Albion doing? They're recommending integrated communications and collaboration strategy, whatever that means. So our account manager, LJ Fremer, is going to give us all the scoop about how we're going to be a better business. But first, of course, Mr. Fremer or Ms. Fremer is going to go around and introduce every single member of the Albion team. That should be pretty boring. And then they're going to spend time telling us who is Albion. It's an $11 billion company with 80,000 employees, and they're ISO 9000, blah, blah, blah. And then, oh, yeah, there's the map. Got to have that map slide in every slide deck showing us where they do business, as if that matters to us. And then they're going to give us a bunch of generic text about how they offer these, quote, leading-edge solutions. Don't you love that? There's some marketing fluff for you. Innovation leader, world-class consulting, uniquely qualified, state-of-the-art. Oh, my goodness. They've really got all the cliches down, don't they? And this goes on, blah, blah, blah. The problem with all this, of course, is that it's absolutely self-centered. And I just recently was working with a client, and it was like they got a hold of this slide deck I used to make fun of bad presentations and decided that was the good example because it was exactly the same thing, only more text. They crammed even more words on the slide. We know it doesn't work. You wouldn't want to watch that slide. You wouldn't want to watch that presentation. You wouldn't want to read a proposal organized that way. And yet, here's a disturbing fact. Nearly 1/3 of all sales proposals and pitches start with the vendor's company history. I think it's fair to ask, why? Why? What is it about your company history that's that fascinating that you think that's the first thing the customer wants to hear? I do a lot of work with Wells Fargo, and they actually have a fascinating company history. You know, they were running stagecoaches, and Black Bart was holding them up, and they had gold bullion in the floorboards, and they actually made a TV show called Tales of Wells Fargo. You know, people still don't want to hear it. What they want to know is, what are you going to do for me? I think what happens is people lapse into this because they don't know what else to do. And so if you think about the typical salesperson, if you look at their resume, writing proposals and creating great RFP answers is probably not something that's prominent in that resume. What they talk about is hitting their numbers and managing a large book of business and creating opportunity and entering new markets and so forth, not proposal writing. And the fact is, it's just hard. I honestly believe that writing a good proposal is the hardest form of writing we can do. And I've written speeches, I've written scripts, you know, I've written novels, all that stuff, and I would say that a proposal is more difficult than any of those. So what happens is when a business owner, a salesperson, a self-employed consultant has to write one, sometimes, and maybe it's unconscious, they look for that exit. They look for a quick way out. Now, one exit involves sheep. And it involves sheep in the sense that we clone previous proposals. Or Dolly. I wonder what's happened to Dolly the sheep, the first cloned sheep. We know what happens to cloned proposals. They end up containing all kinds of embarrassing errors, like the wrong client name and facts that aren't valid and services we didn't really mean to offer. And as a result, we embarrass ourselves and we produce a document that sounds generic and inappropriate to the specific opportunity we're bidding on. Then another escape route is to just do a data dump. Just gather up everything, drill 3 holes in the margin, find a big old binder and shove it at the client and say, here, I think you'll find something in here you like. And when you do, call me. The problem is people don't read your proposals. And the bigger they are, the less likely they are to read them. One of my clients that does ERP consulting and implementation projects actually decided bravely to cut their proposal down to a mere 400 pages. And it took some courage because they were competing against some of the big IT consulting firms, and those proposals were coming in at over 1,000 pages. Well, they won the deal. It was with a large city government, and the manager of the city said, you know what? Yours was the only proposal we could even get through. The others are so big, we just couldn't find the time to even look at them. So no, nobody buys on the thud factor, and if it's not germane to the deal, leave it out. Escape route number 3, well, that's about talking about the thing we know and love the best, namely ourselves. And that's where I think that tendency to launch in with the company history comes from. We know that stuff. We're proud of it. We feel good about it, but we lose sight of the fact that's not what the customer wants to hear right up front. Instead, our customer, the executives to whom we are bidding, expect a different kind of message. Even though for us, what's easy is to provide factual information at a pretty high level of expertise, the kind of thing we would do if we were talking to our colleagues, we need to get out of that comfort zone and move down into the persuasion zone. We need to simplify the language, and we need to change the pattern. We need to find a way of explaining things and presenting things more effectively to accomplish our goal of persuasion. If we don't, if we use one of those 3 exits, if we just provide a price quote or a company history, then what happens? We commit one or more of the 7 deadly sins of proposal writing.